There's the visual double standard, and it's almost comedic at this point. Journalists are writing love letters to Highguard, while sweating profusely over Crimson Desert's performance targets. Highguard can look like a collection of brown pixels, and nobody bats an eye. They call it stylized and evocative. But the second Crimson Desert shows volumetric clouds, or a high-fidelity character model, the optimization prophets come crawling out of the walls. Suddenly everyone is worried about consoles. Suddenly the vibe is suspicion. Contrary to popular belief, these vocal cords are 100% organic and locally sourced, no silicon, no AI, just me. The mainstream gaming press is having a collective panic attack because a South Korean studio decided to build a game that looks like it belongs in the next decade. That game is Crimson Desert. The studio is Pearl Abyss. And the people acting most alarmed are the same people who have spent the last 5 years complaining that AAA has lost its spark. That contradiction is the whole show. I'm watching previews and reactions, and it keeps feeling like I'm listening to someone complain that their dinner is too big, too flavorful, and requires chewing. Every time a journalist says red flag, I hear feature. Too complex. Too big. Great. Too cinematic. Fine by me. Custom engine. Finally. It's like the industry trained a slice of the press to interpret ambition as a personal insult. Here's what actually matters for you, the person who buys games, and then lives with them. If critics who treat effort like a defect get to define what good means, you're going to be stuck with safe little experiences that apologize for being games. 8-bit walking simulators. Emotionally moving pixel art games about depression. Tight, focused 3-hour journeys that reviewers can finish during lunch and then praise for respecting your time. Meanwhile, anything that demands attention gets framed like a threat, and I get why that happens. Deadlines exist. Preview windows exist. Reviews need to go up fast because traffic is a hungry animal and everyone is feeding it. But that pressure creates a bias. A game that takes time becomes inconvenient. Complexity becomes inaccessible. A large map becomes overwhelming. A demanding boss becomes unbalanced. A cinematic camera becomes shaky. The language sounds like design critique, but half the time, it's really schedule anxiety wearing a smart jacket. So let me go through the specific complaints, because the pattern is consistent and the motives are obvious if you stare at them long enough. First, the map panic. The mainstream media is unironically worried that the map in Crimson Desert is too large. That is like complaining your winning lottery ticket has too many zeros on it. Its value being treated like a burden. Since when did getting more for your money become a negative? In 2010, you saw a massive map and your jaw hit the floor. You wanted to see what was over the next mountain. You wanted to get lost. Now in 2026, apparently a massive fantasy world is overwhelming. Sure, there's a real version of this critique. Big maps can be empty. Big maps can be icon soup. Big maps can waste your life with chores. But that's not what the description here is selling. The pitch is density. A world so dense you could get lost in it for a week. That's not bloat. That's the whole point of paying 70 or 80 bucks. If I'm paying premium price, I want a world I can live in, not a corridor I can breeze through before my coffee gets cold. Yes, performance matters. I'm not arguing against performance. I'm arguing against the tone. Can a console even run this? Can be a neutral question. In this coverage it reads like an accusation, like Pearl Abyss is selling magic beans. It's skepticism with a smirk. It's people wanting to be right about a downgrade before the game is even in a box. It's safer to be the one who warned everyone than the one who got excited. The engine discourse is the same vibe. Critics keep asking why they didn't just use Unreal Engine 5, like every game should be built on the same generic foundation forever. Do you want everything to look and feel the same? Because that's how you get the current sameness. The familiar lighting, the familiar foliage, the familiar I've seen this rock and this tree in 3 other games feeling. A custom engine is expensive. It's hard, it's work. That is exactly why it can produce something distinct, and the hypocrisy here is delicious. If an indie dev builds their own engine out of recycled cardboard and hope, these same people call it ingenious. If a big studio does it to achieve a specific high-end look, it's suddenly reckless. Same behavior, opposite framing. The difference is not logic. The difference is who they want to root for. Now the vision complaint. A critic claimed the game lacks its own bold vision because it has too many features. Too many features, therefore no vision. That is an incredible sentence. Grappling hook, dragon riding, deep combat, world interaction, and the conclusion is that the game is confused because it offers variety. This is the most game journalist take of all time. To these people, if you aren't doing one thing, and only one thing, for 10 hours, the game is messy. They want a platformer where you jump on a single mushroom for 6 hours, because that's laser-focused genius. I'm not even saying focus is bad. Focus can be amazing. I'm saying variety equals failure is a preference disguised as a universal rule. A sandbox can be the vision. A toolset can be the vision. The question isn't how many features. The question is, do they connect? Then we get the control scheme panic, which is my personal favorite, because it's always framed like a tragedy. The latest trend in previews is complaining that the controls are complex, as if having to use more than 2 buttons is a human rights violation. I'm sorry, the game doesn't play itself while you check notifications. Some of us like using our hands, some of us like timing. Some of us like combos and muscle memory. That's the fun part. This is the same crowd that wants an easy mode for every Souls-like because they can't be bothered to learn mechanics. And look, options are fine. Accessibility in the real sense is fine. But there's a difference between making a game readable and trying to remove the concept of skill from the medium. If you can't handle a complex control scheme, maybe you're in the wrong profession. Stick to Candy Crush and leave deep combat systems to people who actually enjoy the game part of video games. Camera complaints follow the same pattern, preference turned into verdict. Critics are roasting the camera for being too cinematic and shaky, completely ignoring what it's trying to do. It's an immersive action experience. It's a dragon-slaying simulator, not a C-SPAN broadcast. If the camera isn't shaking when a 50-foot monster slams the ground 3 feet away, did the impact even happen? They want a static, safe, sterile view of the world where nothing ever disrupts their perfect perspective. But epic adventure isn't sterile. It's chaotic. It's visceral. That messes the point. Now difficulty. This is where the brand worship becomes impossible to ignore. There is a blatant double standard, where if a game is hard and made in Japan, it's challenging and rewarding. But if Crimson Desert is hard, it's unbalanced and fiddly. If From Software puts a boss in a game that kills you in 2 hits, journalists talk about meticulous design and triumph of the spirit. When Pearl Abyss shows off a boss fight that looks equally demanding, they start whining about the learning curve. The hypocrisy is so thick, you could use it as armor plating. And it ties into the bigger double standard, indie forgiveness versus AA purity tests. If a small developer releases a buggy, unoptimized mess, it's ambitious but flawed, a diamond in the rough. If Crimson Desert has a single frame drop in a pre-release build, it's a technical disaster. That's not criticism, that's a vibe check. A wholesome indie game launches with game-breaking bugs, and the reviews still land on 9/10, because the intent was good. A massive project from outside the Western bubble gets treated like it needs to be perfect, or it shouldn't exist. This is why the press reaction feels less like consumer advocacy, and more like social sorting. Some studios get generosity, others get suspicion. Some games get framed as art when they're limited. Other games get framed as problems when they're ambitious. And that shapes the market. It shapes what gets funded. It shapes what gets encouraged. Now, let me shift into the part that's actually interesting. Why would Pearl Abyss make these choices? Because if you look at the ingredients described, custom engine, cinematic camera, dense world, complex controls, demanding combat, it reads like a deliberate bet on feel, on physicality, on spectacle that's earned through interaction, not just cutscenes. They want weight. They want chaos. They want you to work for your wins. They want the game to respect your intelligence enough to hand you tools and let you figure out what kind of player you are. That's why the too many features complaint doesn't land for me. The real question is integration. Do traversal tools feed combat? Does world interaction support exploration? Do systems speak the same language, or do they sit in separate boxes? That's where good design lives. Not in reducing a game to one mechanic, so a reviewer can summarize it cleanly. Same with the big world. The design question is not, is it big? The design question is, does it reward curiosity? If I wander, do I find interesting friction, interesting encounters, interesting moments? Or do I find chores and filler? A dense world can make scale feel rich. A bad world can make scale feel like homework. That's the real line. The camera question is not, is it cinematic? The camera question is, does it communicate threats? While selling impact, you can have shake and still have readability. You can have spectacle and still have control. It's tuning, not morality. And the controls question is not, are they complex? It's, is the learning curve taught well? Complexity isn't automatically good. Complexity needs onboarding, it needs a ramp, it needs clear feedback. It needs the game to teach without turning into a textbook. Okay, now I'm going to do the thing the coverage refuses to do. Treat these complaints like design prompts instead of panic buttons. What if you keep the ambition and just solve the friction in a smart way? What if the combat is deep on purpose, but the game teaches it through encounters instead of minutes? Introduce moves in layers. Early fights encourage a specific mechanic without forcing a tutorial pop up every 10 seconds. Enemies are designed to reward timing and punish button mashing, but in a way that makes the lesson obvious. You lose, you understand why, you adjust. That's mastery without homework. What if the cinematic camera is part of the intended feel, but you give players controls to tune it? Camera shake intensity. Motion blur toggles. A way to reduce chaos for people who want clarity. You preserve the intended punch for people who want it, and you reduce discomfort for people who don't. That's not compromising the vision. That's letting the vision fit more bodies. What if the world is huge, but the navigation is built on landmarks and terrain language instead of neon arrows? You guide without hand-holding. You let players get lost, but you make loss feel like discovery, not like confusion. You reward wandering with small, meaningful finds, so exploration feels like progress even when you're not chasing an icon. What if the feature variety is actually the bold vision, and the job is to make the systems talk to each other? Grappling hook isn't just traversal. It's positioning in combat. Dragon riding isn't just spectacle. It's a new angle on the world and on encounters. World interaction isn't just busywork. It's a way to make the player feel like the environment is more than wallpaper. The more these systems connect, the less the game feels like a checklist, and the more it feels like a coherent playground. And here's the part nobody wants to admit: a lot of the press panic is about fit. A game like this doesn't fit modern review culture. Review culture likes clean lanes, story game, combat game, exploration game. Crimson Desert is being sold as all of it at once. That's messy for a scorecard, it's not necessarily messy for a player. Another mini hook: look at how fast the framing flips. When a game is small, any flaw becomes charming. When a game is huge, every flaw becomes evidence of doom. That's not logic, that's comfort seeking. Reviewers want a product they can consume cleanly, then summarize cleanly. Crimson Desert threatens that, because it looks like the kind of game that keeps growing the more you touch it. And yeah, that scares people who prefer neat boxes in print. So my personal opinion lands here. The criticism reads like self-protection. This is going to take time. This is going to take effort. This might require me to get good. That's fine as a personal reaction. It becomes ridiculous when it's presented as an objective warning. Players are starving for a big game moment again. Not because nostalgia is magic, but because those moments were events. The first time Skyrim opened up. The first time The Witcher 3 made the world feel bigger than the quest marker. Those games weren't perfect. They were just ambitious, in a way that made you feel the medium stretch. Crimson Desert looks like that kind of stretch. So here's the takeaway without the sermon voice. Treat the early skepticism as information about the reviewer's tolerance for friction. If the complaint is, this takes time, decide if you want a game that takes time. If the complaint is, controls are complex, decide if you like mastery. If the complaint is, camera is cinematic, decide if you want impact. If the complaint is, why not Unreal, decide if you're tired of the same look everywhere. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is fun, not convenience. Not review speed fun. If you want chaos, complexity, and dragons, the coverage panic is basically free confirmation that the game isn't built to be finished during a lunch break. And honestly, good, we've had enough of the safe years. We've had enough of the 3-hour experiences. Give the big swing. The critics can keep their sourdough slices. I'll take the desert.